What's going on, guys? I'm TieFly85.
And I'm T-Rec87. And today we're going to be reviewing Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Let's get started.
What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of MG Nights. Now, today we're going to be discussing the Resident Evil Biohazard, so for all of you who tuned in last week, we did play Wolfenstein 2, and this week we decided to play Resident Evil Biohazard. But let's go ahead and start the review. We did want to go ahead and mention straight up front that this is not going to be a spoiler review, so if any of you are looking for spoilers or anything like that, we're not going to be doing spoilers. We would love for you guys to try this game out for yourself. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into it. T-Rec, what do you got to say?
Well, first off, I think that as far as the characters go in this game, I think it's got a pretty diverse, kind of a unique cast of characters. And let me kind of give you just like a basic setting of the story if you haven't actually seen anything about this game or played anything about this game. Maybe this is a game that you kind of skipped over for the holidays, but basically what it involves is your character is Ethan Winters, and your wife, Mia Winters, has been missing for like 3 years. She's presumed dead, and just as, he's come to terms with it, has let it go, he gets a video message from his wife saying, basically, don't come here, stay away. And naturally, his first reaction is to go to that place. And it's set in Louisiana, and you end up coming upon this creepy house, which is the Baker residence. And the Bakers are the main antagonists of this game. And it's just this family, they're creepy, something's wrong with them. And I found them to be more interesting personally than the main characters, as far as the protagonist goes. Jack Baker was my absolute favorite character in this game. Now, what's happened to all these people is they've been infected with something, and basically they just kind of they're sort of animalistic, zombie-ish. They're freaks. They can't die, and he showcases that to you in parts of the game because he tells you right before he does it that he's going to come back, and he's basically just wants to show you that that's going to happen, and just kind of the deranged, devolved personalities that this family has turned into. It really interested me. It made me want to know what the Baker family was like before the game started. I wanted to know more about them, and I found them to be very compelling antagonists. What did you think about them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really did like Jack Baker, the father character. And yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I really did like the overall story of the family. It absolutely reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If any of you saw that movie and you saw when they were all sitting around the table in that movie, it really had that similar feel of the really creepy, super creepy family, and you're just invited to this, horror fest.
Yeah, and so, like I said, the characters were really good. The atmosphere of this game is great, and Resident Evil, they are definitely not. They don't shy away from the jump scare trope of horror, films and games, where it's just all the time. And I know TieFly watched one of my first streams when I was playing the game, and I about every 5 seconds was just I was freaking out. Because I don't do real well with jump scares. They really freak me out. So the atmosphere is just this dark, gritty, disgusting place. You never know what's going to come around the corner. You'll just be running along and just you go around a corner and all of a sudden there'll be this giant monster, a goo monster that's trying to eat your head off, or it could be one of the family members. They seem to almost randomly walk around the map in a way. I don't know if it's random necessarily, but I feel like sometimes it is, because I'll be walking around the house, that you're in, and then I won't encounter anybody for the longest time, and then just out of nowhere, the father will grab you by the shoulder and spin you around, and punch you in the face, and then he proceeds to try to cleave your head off with an axe or a rake or whatever it is he has. And it's just there's always a feeling of tension in this game. There's never a moment where I felt very, except for the safe room, but there's never a moment where I really feel relaxed or I can really take in my surroundings. I'm always looking around, waiting for somebody to jump out at me. So I think as far as the atmosphere, the setting of this game, they did a really, really good job.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree. It definitely brought me back to Resident Evil. I mean, if anybody's played Resident Evil, you know that all the Resident Evils have had that kind of creepy-esque feeling. And but this game had a whole, it took me to a whole new Resident Evil altogether. Like I loved what they did with this game of focusing on like, one specific area, but it was like so much ground to cover within the area. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very creepy, and like you said, the jump scares were perfectly done.
And also, that actually brings me to another thing: is that this game is completely done in a first-person perspective, and I think this was a really good move on their part. Like the previous Resident Evil games always had like, whether it was like the zombies or the people coming at you with chainsaws, and they'd come at you kind of in numbers, and that would always make you kind of feel kind of nervous, or something come crashing out the wall. It is a lot different when you only have this much vision and you can't see what's going on like this side of the map or this side of the map, and someone just comes like crashing through the wall at you. I think that was a really good choice on their part to switch over to a first-person perspective.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It definitely gave you that extra feeling. It kind of reminded me of like the Doom aspect of it. Like when you switch to that Doom, it totally reminded me of that overall. But I really loved that feeling of being able, because I know what you're talking about with the older games. Any of you played it, you always had the look down view where you're always looking down at the character and had to try to figure out like that.
Right, or the camera's at like a fixed angle, like somewhere, and so yeah, it's just a lot different.
Yeah, but it's a lot better. I love it. I think it's
too.
great. I think the changes are amazing.
Yeah, I do too. And it seems like this game and I haven't played 5 or 6. I did play 4 and 3, and the older ones.
Everybody played 4.
Yeah, and because 4 was so cool because it was such a big. I think like it was like a big leap graphically for the series. And it was different because they weren't necessarily like zombies,
Well, they changed the T virus to Las Plagas, so it was like a completely different mutated virus. But then when they introduced Resident Evil 4 onto the Wii, I think that's when it like blew up. Because that's when I first played it, was on the Wii, and it was so interactive. Like I can't even begin to tell you like how crazy it was to hold the remotes and then have to like, it was so interactive and fun. That was probably hands down funnest game interactively I think I've ever played.
Yeah, and so my point to that though is that it seems like with 4, and like I've seen a lot of things about 5 and 6, it seems like Resident Evil was kind of moving more into like the action territory, and not so much like the survival horror suspense genre. I mean, they still have their scary moments, but like from what I've seen about them, it seems like they were shifting directions, and I think this really brings Resident Evil back to its roots a little bit. Just with just being always in suspense, always feeling tense, always having that feeling in your stomach like something's about to happen. This game made me feel that way a lot. It wasn't until I got outside the house that I genuinely felt like I was maybe going to be okay. Because once you get outside the house, there's other areas to explore. Like Typhlight said, it is a pretty big area. But it wasn't until I got to somewhere where I was like back out in the open, because in the beginning of the game you're kind of trapped in the house, that I felt like maybe I was going to be all right. But anytime I was in that house, I was immediately just like fearful, and it was of the father character, just because he snuck up on me so many times, and no matter what I was doing, if I was trying to like unlock a door, I was just like interacting with something, and then I had to try to figure out like, okay, obviously I can't kill him. I need to run away, and I need him to not follow me. And it was a matter of like trying to figure out how to do that and do that quickly before he gets you. I just have really nothing but praise as far as like the atmosphere and the setting and the story of this game. I thought was really good. The other characters too, like the creepy granny, I thought was really cool. She appears all over the place. Lucas was also the son was also very cool. He was kind of like a deranged. Seemed like he was a bit of a thinker, like a kind of a madman. Like a bit of a genius almost, though, like in a way.
He reminded me of there's a part in the game, I won't ruin it for any of you, but it reminded me of Jigsaw. Like, just think of Jigsaw, but as Lucas. Like, that's who Lucas reminded me of.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about. And so, I mean, the whole family's really good. Zoe is kind of like your guiding voice throughout the game. She's, I think, the niece, who's also been affected, but is trying to get And everybody in this game, what they get infected by is this mold. And it's from this little girl called Evelyn, and she is like a bioweapon. And she goes through and she's infecting these people, and it takes them over, and it consumes their soul and their minds, and makes them crazy. And the whole point of you going there is try to like basically make a serum to rescue your wife and get her out of there. So that is all very good. As far as the gameplay goes, I do love the first person view. I do have a couple gripes with the gameplay in itself. My biggest thing is the inventory system, and I realize this is kind of a hallmark of the Resident Evil series, having limited inventory space where you can only carry so many herbs, so many bullets, so many guns, because you should never feel like a walking army in a game like this. You always need to feel like you're kind of underpowered. But when there's things in the game, like there's keys that you acquire to unlock doors, and or you acquire these VHS tapes or pieces of paper or photographs or whatever, these all take up precious inventory space, and then you end up going to a room and you find something new, but you can't pick it up because your inventory space is full, and so you got to go back to like your safe area, swap everything out, and then go back again. It just causes a lot of repetitiveness in a game like this, and I think key items, something like a key, they, if nothing else, should be in a different inventory space within the system. They shouldn't take up like your primary like weapon and ammo space. I get not wanting you to be able to have everything, and if you need to like reduce the amount of space players have, that's fine. But I don't want to run back and forth room to room to grab a different key just so I can go run back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It really rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that particular aspect of it with that. But I mean, that is a typical Resident Evil game, so a lot of us who have played those games over the years are kind of used to that.
Sure.
But I do completely agree with you that any of the stuff like the treasure photos or any of the keys, like you said, I do feel that those should have been in a completely separated screen, not within the inventory. It's just something that was always there. So no matter when you went up to that door, it was automatically use the key versus you had to actually select the key at the door.
Right.
So I think that would have been a little bit more interesting, but I think also, too, it would have took away from that aspect of making it just a smidge more challenging, especially when you're running away from something and you got to get to the door, but then you got to select the key, and it's like you can hear it right behind you. So it added to that extra creepy factor, and I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for.
Sure, I mean, but like throw up a second inventory screen, and so like when you go to run up that door, have it bring up all your different keys and stuff that you've collected, and that way you still have to pick the right one. There's a way to do that and still make it good, but with that, and the only reason I dislike it, like I said, and like when I was like watching your stream, like there's a lot of times where you're just running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth from your safe house, just trying to sort, like doing micromanage your inventory, and it took me out of the game a little bit, I guess, is my thing. So yeah, and I get it's a hallmark of the series to have limited inventory space, but there's a better way to do this. And so that was my main complaint with the game. My other complaint with the game, the combat was so. It was okay. I'm really torn about the combat. I like that the enemies are kind of hard to kill, and I like obviously that you're not running around with like machine guns and just blasting folks. But at the same time, I was having such a hard time hitting people, like in the head, doing like headshots. And I get like in a real life situation that would probably also be hard. I'd be terrified if there was like a zombie with a chainsaw coming at me. But I felt like with like the handgun and stuff like that, I felt clunky. I felt slow. I don't know if you felt that way, but that's just how I felt when I was holding the gun. It felt like I was just moving really slowly.
Overall, as far as that particular, I can see where you're coming from on that. I feel like they did that on purpose, though, to add, like I said again, to like how it was with the keys and the doors. It just added to the whole, like, oh my goodness, this person's going to get to me before I can even get done reloading, or before I can even get my gun out, like, before they get there. Which I know they had a lot of quick options for, like, guns and knives and stuff like that to quickly grab things. But, I mean, if you had to reload your gun because you didn't reload it from before, like, that kind of stuff. Like, it just made it more, like, creepy and also frustrating at the same time. So they definitely pulled it off if that's what they were going for.
Yeah, and I can see, like, maybe what they were going for. It's just, like I said, if I'm sitting there trying to shoot at a monster, and I'm trying to shoot him in the head, and he keeps weaving back and forth because that's his character animation, I can't follow it quickly enough to where I end up missing, and, I only have, like, 10 bullets, and then there's, like, 3 more to shoot, and I'm like, well, cool, I got a pocket knife now, and that's all I have. And you heard me on this playing yesterday. and I was like literally like screaming at the game. Maybe it was the day before, but I was just getting so mad because I couldn't take all these enemies down, even though I had plenty of bullets. But by the time I'd get to like the last one, because I had wasted so many shots because I felt like my character wasn't moving fast enough, I'd die. And so I was getting really frustrated with that. I get what they're going for. I just feel like, and I didn't see an option in the game to change like how sensitive the controls were, really. And so I just wish there had been an option to change. Maybe like I can get having a slower reload animation. That's totally cool with me. You know, that's totally fine. But as far as the aim speed, it just maybe I'm used to having a higher sensitivity, like when I play like first person shooters and stuff like that. And so having it be a slower aiming, it really messed with me.
I think if you ever get a chance, I'd highly recommend you replay it and try to get all of the steroids, because the steroids is what gives you more health and makes you faster, so you can actually run away from things faster. Like once you get all of the steroids.
Right, I got a couple of them.
Yeah, when you get a couple of them, you can definitely notice that you're able to run just a smidge faster and take a few more hits. But I think once you get all of the steroids is when it kind of gives you that feeling of like, oh, okay, like now I can run a little faster and load a little faster and
sure,
take a few more hits. But I think that kind of added extra to the game. So where you're frustrated by those particular things, like it did give you the option to take care of that part of it, but it definitely made you work for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and so, yeah, absolutely. So I can definitely see your opinion. I mean, like, you definitely... I can see why what they were trying to work towards, and give you more things to like collect in game, like collect those coins so you can unlock those power ups to make you more powerful. Because in the beginning of the game, they want you to feel weak and maybe kind of build towards being able to take down those bigger bosses towards the end. So I get what they're aiming for. It just like I said, and on a personal note, like I'm not a fan of Resident Evil, anyways. Like the horror games in general. I kind of like Resident Evil, but I'm very selective about which ones I'll play, and so maybe it's just my gripes with this type of game, where somebody like like Tyfly, who really loves these games, doesn't have those same gripes, whereas I'm more used to games like Destiny, where my character is empowered and and is kind of just like a killing machine, versus Resident Evil, where everything else is a killing machine and you're just trying to not die. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, you're used to playing games where you are the bakers instead of against the bakers.
yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm just yeah, absolutely. And I like those types of games where your character is empowered and powerful, and that's like why I play video games, because I like those stories. So it is an interesting turn. I did have to like force myself to play this game. Within the first like 10 minutes of this game, I wanted to shut it off just because I was already getting like stressed out about being scared. I just don't like being stressed about about playing a video game, because video games are what I do to relax. I don't like want to play a video game to have like a pulmonary, and so it's not my genre really. But overall, I think Resident Evil was, as far as a Resident Evil game goes, if you're into the series, if you have not played this yet, it is absolutely worth your time. I think it is a very good game. So let's go ahead and give it a score. If you were to score this game based on like our new scoring system, whether it's buying it, outright new, which I think at this point it's like $30. So it's not a $60 game anymore, and it has a bunch of DLC too that you can also get that add to the story. Or buy it on sale, or you could red box it, or you can just wait till it hits the bargain bin someday. What score would you give it, Tyfly?
I would definitely say buy it brand new. I mean, not only because it's $30, but the game itself has so much replay value. I know you wouldn't really think that from a Resident Evil game, but one thing that we didn't actually get into is there is multiple endings to this game.
Yes.
So I won't get into like how it is possible that there's multiple endings, but just know that there's a part in the game where you have to make a choice. So I mean, having that to be able to go back through and have that multiple ending, but also too like it's great. I would highly say buy it brand new. Like go buy this game.
But anyway, yeah. So you would recommend buying this game outright. So if you are a fan of like horror movies, horror games, anything like that, likely you've already played this game. But if not, if you're kind of interested in this game, Tyfly thinks you should buy this game. However, if you are somebody who kind of is hesitant toward horror games, or maybe isn't a huge fan of the Resident Evil series, but can appreciate it, for me, this was like a red box. Or if it goes on sale, if I saw this game on sale for like $20, it would be something I'd probably pick up. You know, like $20 is $20. It's not that huge of a deal to me. But I think it's worth at least a playthrough if you can if you can stand horror type stuff, and if you like horror type stuff. It is definitely at least worth at least one playthrough.
Yeah, I agree with you, absolutely.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, you should. Everybody needs to play this game.
Yeah.
Whether you Redbox it or buy it brand new, I would highly recommend you just buy it, add it to your collection. But whether you Redbox it, buy it brand new, rental bin it, whatever you're going to do with it, like definitely play this game, no matter how you have to get your hands on it.
So yeah, that's it for this review, guys. We both really enjoyed this game for different reasons. I can respect absolutely what they did with Resident Evil 7, even though it's not something I personally love. And obviously, Tyfly, you know, if it's got a zombie on it, he's gonna buy it. So, you know, two different opinions here, I guess. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. And before we go, I do want to mention next week for our reviews next week, and we didn't mention it yesterday. We hadn't completely decided as of yesterday what we were going to review movie-wise for next week, but we have decided on Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle for our movie next week, and we're also going to be reviewing South Park: The Fractured But Whole as far as our game next week. So it will really.
I'm sorry.
So look forward to those. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. We'll also be streaming that game as soon as we both get it in our hands. That way you guys can come check us out on Mixer if you want. We'd love to have you. It's a lot of fun. So anyways, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
And always remember, stay awesome.
Are you fucking serious?
Did
you start giggling about butthole?
The way you said it, I'm leaving that part in, just so you know. The second I started laughing and then you started laughing, I was just like, this is gonna be gold.
I only started laughing because you started laughing. Like, we're fucking four. All right.
That's what I was gonna say to you. I was like, I feel like such a kid right now.
This is as good as I can be. Why isn't it enough to be faithful and also be the hit of the party? Let's just break it down to you and me uptown.